guess there was muted. I didn't know it was muted. Sorry, guys. I've been talking to you. My bad.
See, you said cat that wasn't there on the screen. It doesn't do nothing.
So I started out on YouTube, but I won't be shutting down later so I can have the Rumble because Eric's still going to show on Rumble. So I wanted to go ahead and get started because they're going to be doing something here soon. But I do got to go grab my other friend from outside. I think this is a good spot for you guys. You guys are alright with that? Oh, yeah, I didn't know I had muted buffering. It shouldn't be buffering.
I hit my.
Yes, just so I can listen to the butterness. Praying for her. It shouldn't be buffering. Is everybody else buffering? You're not hearing me?
Million mode.
Can't be here.
Huh? I know they say this will be it. That's why I started yes. Huh?
It looks good.
Yeah, right now, because I have to do it.
So you gotta turn the auto. Uh,
4,000 here.
better?
Yeah, good. Thank you. I got to purchase now.
You got a pair of what?
You know how to plug into like what Steve was asking about cutting in. If you
Yeah, I can do
can,
that.
can you go to a particular video?
Yeah,
You're something that you did.
yes.
So you have that set up.
I can't have it while he's doing it, but if you could say, let's cut to that video, and then 2 seconds later, you're like, okay, so we saw this. And afterwards, I put the video.
Yeah.
I've already discussed that with Steve.
So I said that. I said, well, I think you can go like
I'm sure there's a way around it.
Yeah, we're
You know anything about VMix?
just a few minutes.
VMix editing?
I've never really, I've played with it a little bit, but I've never really used it.
Yes,
Kind of understand it.
they were going to start in just a few minutes here.
Because that was the way I think that's the way I.
All right. So Steve, what you're gonna do is when you want to go to a cut, you're gonna say go to the cut. Here's what we're gonna show them, the new bridges thing, and you look at the camera, and then he's gonna cut it, and then he's gonna edit it back in, and then when you guys are ready to restart, you'll say okay, that, and then you
Give
restart
it 2
again.
seconds, and then we talk.
Yep.
Okay. And I'll do the same thing with some of them.
Perfect. And then I upload the American First Realty up to Dropbox, so that we have that.
First, we'll take over because they know company is watching us.
Awesome.
Yes.
Dave, you want me to get this water? Sure.
You want a one?
Oh, yes, please.
How are you? How are you? You're good. You're good.
I do. I'm on medication that's kicking my ass. I'm so tired.
Yeah.
Gotta drive to South Carolina tonight.
For American Voice?
No, I gotta return my daughter to college.
Oh, okay. Where's she going to college?
U.S.A. Columbia, thank you.
When are you doing that, David?
3 in the morning.
Oh my God.
Oh, God bless you.
Yeah. It's
Well,
I gotta do it. I'll be back Monday. Then I'm covering Trump Monday morning in Bedminster.
okay.
So that should be fun.
What year are you going?
Sophomore.
Okay. Yeah. You got to do a couple more times.
My last of 4.
Okay.
Yeah. But next year she can become a resident, so I won't be at 50 grand a year. South Carolina goes down by like 20 grand tuition
As long as you're in state.
if you're a resident.
Oh, wow.
So she can get residency. And I told her to get out of New York.
Just adjust. However,
I kicked her out.
I can hear that.
Kicked her out of New York. All right. Which cameras are we doing?
You're in the middle.
Center camera, I think.
Okay.
The Joe wants this in the background to make it look like lively and see it throughout the
All right. Maybe I should button another button.
Can you just test your mic?
Where will this be posted?
It'll be on mobile.
Will it get posted? Can we put it on the Getter? Is it a Getter live stream or is
It's
it
not like Getter live stream, like we're not Getter.
Can you post it together?
Yes.
Under AFW and I'll share it with everybody?
Yep. I can get the link up in a couple hours.
All right, great.
Steve, can you just test your mic?
Yes. Testing 1, 2, 3. Are they good?
Whenever you guys are ready.
Give me 1 second. David, anything particular you want to talk about today?
Yeah,
I know
well,
you always have a lot.
Yeah, I got Breaking Point.
Do you want
I got a guy who's doing a documentary on Tom Homan. He did a 10-part documentary on Tom Homan. He's going on the show. Tom Trent does.
Okay.
Joe would like that.
I know. I'm trying to. Wait. Yeah.
No, you're thinking of the guy from Colorado, right? There's a similar name. He founded United West, Tom Trento. And
So, just to sync up with you,
Trento Communications.
we're gonna maybe what the plan is. You can edit in one image and mediating and second little video and another short.
I did a little bit. Yeah.
You want me to play it?
I'm sure. Yeah, it was good.
And so this is in the context of the J6 thing. Okay? I'd like to hit just like 5 bullet points on Georgia voting nonsense.
You're thinking of Tom Tancredo, maybe?
Tancredo.
Yeah, I know.
Tancredo.
He bagged on my show 6 times in a row.
Tancredo. Yes. He begged 6 times?
Yeah,
What?
yeah.
How could that possibly be?
I don't know. It's supposed to be a man of the people, right? Spoke to him. I met with him. Let's go do it, and then he kept canceling.
It is the new thing.
Yeah, I saw that.
You said we're going to have a generation of bitterness. I'm worried about a generation of slavery.
Well, he had another video where he was saying we're going to have. You know,
Okay, I'm sorry.
All right.
This would be the way it's going to work. You guys say, we're going to cut to this video now. You look at the camera. Give it 2 seconds and talk about it because I can't actually put it. You're now that I
Suppose.
Yeah,
So we can either take a look at the camera, we can either just delay it for a few seconds,
or you can start filming it. Either way, I'm going to splice that.
All right. You want to do this?
David, did you see the thing from the former Lieutenant Governor of Georgia, Jeff Duncan, about the opportunity to take back the? I would like to comment on that, or ask you for your comments on that as well. Okay?
He's a douchebag.
Yeah. Okay. Well. Okay. Good. I want to say, hey, ain't gonna happen, pal. Ain't gonna happen. No. America First is taking over the Republican Party. Okay. If time allows, David, I may try to say some things there about the federal versus state governance in the Constitution. Some.
So I thought this is a J6.
Yeah, we can talk about J6, but I don't feel like we have to. It doesn't have to be 100%. I just had the same conversation with Steve Lee this morning. So he asked me to join him tomorrow at 3.
Okay.
And he asked if it's possible for me to talk about things other than just J6, and I said yes. All right, so do you want to start out? We'll talk about. Did you want to comment on anything from the?
No, the schedule for tonight.
So
Offhand,
yeah,
and tomorrow, because I'm not here tomorrow.
Yeah, so it's gonna be the focus. We're gonna have Sarah. We're gonna have the focus on the J6.
So you have Sarah McAfee tonight.
Sarah McAfee, I think Andrea Young again. Mickey is going to be here.
What's Andrea Young's story?
That her husband Kyle is the one that tried to keep the officer from taking his gun out of his holster. And they charged him for that. Who's going to be hosting
I didn't think Joseph.
tonight? Joe, you're hosting tonight?
Yes, 4 o'clock.
Okay, you're going to do Sarah, so you're going to have Mickey tonight?
Yeah, Joel, Sarah McAfee, and David Summerall. They were going to leave them at 67, I think, around 4.
Okay.
And I do want to call my team.
All right, I got to do this because
All right. Yeah. Okay.
Right. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Welcome, Patriots, to the America First podcast. Today is Wednesday, August 16th, 2023, in the year of our Lord and Savior. This is day 3 of the J6 Truth and Justice event here at the incredible America First warehouse, the most patriotic venue in the country and the tip of the spear for the America First movement in the Northeast. My name is Steve. As always, I identify as a humble America First patriot of faith and honor, and I am joined by the great David Zier.
Hi, Steve. How's it going today? A lot going on here. I can't sleep at night over the stories of the J6 prisoners and their families and the toll it's taken on America. People need to know more and more because our country is under assault. We have a modern-day Soviet Union. This is no different than people being dragged out of their houses as late as in the late 1980s in the Soviet Union. And sent to mental homes and prisons across the Soviet Union, the former Soviet Union. My sister was married in the Soviet Union. She's the only person to ever get a Soviet citizen out of the country through marriage under the communist system. And her husband's family was persecuted by the government, just according to TV set. But that's what's going on here. and we live in a fascistic, technocratic, bureaucratic state, and a kangaroo court system that is unfairly trying J6 people, most of which do nothing wrong other than attend. And it's very sad. And first they go after your family, then they go after you, then your family, then they take away your attorney-client privilege, and then they bankrupt you and force you into a plea deal. So a very corrupt system.
Yeah, so David, and what's going on?
But I'm not bitter.
You're not bitter. The whole focus this week with the J6 false narrative and the true insurrection, the Fedsurrection against we the people, is very much intertwined with the indictment against Donald Trump, the fourth indictment against Trump.
Yeah, are they going to put him in the on the jail across from the Freedom Corner? What? Imagine those vigils.
Could you imagine?
Right?
Could you imagine?
$1,500,000.
Yeah. So
they don't have enough bullhorns in Antifa to challenge that one. You know. But I hear the Antifa's gone away because their budget was too dry up.
Yeah. So now, if you read that indictment, right, it's a crime to ask for a phone number and want to petition the state legislators and ask them to please enforce the state election law.
You mean like when Stacey Abrams didn't want to concede power for a year? You know?
Well, as we know,
Hillary
David,
said there were machines were hacked.
right, we know that it is one's political ideology today that determines your true freedom of speech. If you're of the right ideology, you're just doing everything to protect democracy, and if you're not, you're guilty of conspiracy and criminal enterprise.
Yeah, when you look at it through a soda straw, you can comb through it and say, oh, he may be guilty of this, he may be guilty of that. But when you look at a bird's eye view, the whole thing is insidious, and it's never happened to not only a president or an ex-president. And, you know, there's been many times in history where the Democrats challenge the certification of elections. And we all know at this point that J6 was all about the setup to stop the discussion on the decertification as constitutionally protected according to the 12th Amendment and many articles in the Constitution. And the pipe bomb setup placement was the backup plan in case the insurrection didn't go to the coordinators of it the right way. And
Folks didn't take the bait.
I look at that as the first shot in the revolution, you know, or the first shot, or the shot heard around the world in modern times, because leaving the Capitol Police Chief in the dark on purpose,
Steve's son,
right, and everything that went along with that, and the fact that the certification is supposed to take place at a certain time, and it was right on cue.
Right on cue, right.
And when they returned, they were under different rules. And that
Emergency
discussion on
procedure.
that 10-day review process. I just interviewed Brunson with Brunson Adams about a month ago in Palm Beach, actually. But we lost the interview because they forgot to hit the record button.
Hopefully that's not going to happen today.
That's still alive and kicking, which has like 388 or so defendants in a lawsuit brought by the Brunson brothers pro se. It started in Utah District Court, went to federal court, was booted out to the appellate, and the Supreme Court reached down to grab it. And we were all excited that they would hear it, and they buried it and kicked it down the road for 6 months because everybody's corrupt.
Yes, seems like the only thing I can truly put my faith and trust in these days is God Almighty. So, David, you're absolutely right with January 6th. One of the things that does not get much attention is the perfect timing. They evacuated the chamber just before the first two motions were about to be made, right, to delay the certification and to...
With 140 senators and U.S. House representatives opposing that certification. It's a big number.
Yes.
It's almost a third of Congress.
So,
it's a big number.
right. And that would have led to hearing lots of details that they didn't want the American public to hear about irregularities and potential fraud in the election. And David, I've said this before. I would bet my life, my children's life, my grandchildren's
That
life.
Mitch McConnell was in on it too. Is that
Well,
what you were saying?
there was fraud, grotesque fraud.
Sorry, I didn't want to. Yeah,
But
is that what
McConnell
you were-
was in on it, and he voted that night, and he was part of the group that was evacuated from the chambers along with Nancy Pelosi.
So Georgia, right? It's proven that there were at least 4,000 fraudulent votes. So
Right.
why wouldn't the president of the United States contest the election results? We know that Christopher Wray is completely corrupt. Now he's saying that the 9 hours of closed circuit television was a nothing burger of people driving 30,000 ballots in 4 times each, making 120,000 possible votes. He's saying that nothing was wrong with that. And that's official. I think that's in today's book.
Yes, it is. Christopher Wray and the FBI proved once again how it's evil, David, because evil is, right, is when you have the systemic lies, deception, and corruption, and that is what we are witnessing. So David, you are absolutely right about what happened that night, State Farm Arena. They talked about there was a water leak. We're gonna close down, send everybody home. Then they reported that 5 brave people were staying, to do the work of the people, to continue counting ballots.
Yeah,
And
the
here's
proletariat.
So David, here's what we know, and folks, you can find there's a great video, and this was on Frank's speech. There were irregularities in all the swing states, but in the state of Georgia, Trump was leading at midnight by approximately 356 to 357,000 votes.
And wound up down 11,000.
He ended up losing by 11 to 12,000 votes. And one of the major irregularities that happened was that at 1:34 in the morning, there was a report, there was a dump, and there were 4 such dumps that occurred. This one was in Georgia, where there was a huge number, a spike in votes for Biden. In the state of Georgia, 134.
Don't forget the adjudication that took place too in Biden's favor more than Trump too. But yeah, so go on.
So 136,000 plus votes came in for Biden, 29,000 for Trump. So Biden picked up in excess of 100,000 votes with that one dump.
Okay.
Completely out of line
So
with all
I
the
sat
other data
down
points.
with a number theorist.
Yes.
It was just incredible. He lives right here on Long Island. And he showed me the algorithm that was used in the late night dumps across 5 states. And he went into detail with me on Fulton and DeKalb. It's the same algorithm that was used in Wisconsin and Michigan and other states, right? And the concept is, it had to be a computer generated algorithm. The results couldn't have been done by hand. Because if you took a die or a set of dice, a pair of dice, and you rolled them a million times, you're only going to get the result in Biden's favor 52% of the time. It's a statistical improbability
Right.
that he could have won at 70%, 93%, like he was in Wisconsin and the late night dumps, and in certain counties. It was impossible.
Right. So David, to that point, out of approximately 9,000 vote updates, the election was decided by 4 extreme vote updates, each with a probability of less than 0.1%. Each with a probability of less than 1 in 1,000. So that's consistent with what you were briefed on, right? So the other data points with Georgia, I just want to hit on very quickly, that supports Trump's belief. And realize with this indictment, right, they're trying to make the case that Trump really knew that there was no fraud, but was perpetuating a false narrative that there was
But
fraud
so what?
in order to try to retain
It's his First
power.
Amendment right.
But he knew then there was fraud. He knows now there was fraud. So some other
But
data
even
points.
if he was lying, it doesn't matter.
Well, but the thing is, there's no basis for conspiracy here whatsoever. Um, so, a review of Fulton County's 147,000 mail-in paper ballots has been continuously blocked by the Secretary of State. All right. In Georgia, every scanned ballot has to produce two files: an image file and an authentication file. Right? They're produced simultaneously. Yet, for more than 16,000 ballots, somehow both the image file and the authentication file, right? They should have effectively, they should be produced at the same time. But for more than 16,000 ballots, the authentication files were made hours or days after the image files. How is that possible? Over 17,000 final certified recount presidential votes have no image files whatsoever, no support whatsoever. 132,000 plus mail-in ballot images cannot be authenticated due to missing authentication files. And the last data point from Georgia that I do want to share is that there are no images to support 374,000 certified in-person votes, which is a violation of both federal and Georgia state law. So these are just 5, right, data points that substantiate the widespread fraud in the state of Georgia, where Biden emerged victorious by a little over 11,000 votes.
You know, don't forget the deaf people and the underage voters. So, you know, what's going on here is a very scary for our country. You know, selective prosecutions, banana republic style hits on the leading political opposition puts us in a constitutional crisis and a government that resembles Ecuador, not the United States. And what also is disgusting is the breakneck speed that these indictments and these grand juries have convened when nothing's happened with Delaware with Biden for years, with Hunter. They've had the laptop since 2019. And now there's tracing back to bank accounts over $50 million. Still no investigation. Still no investigation into Biden with unauthorized,
the real criminal
classified
enterprise.
documents.
Real criminal.
Yeah. Right. So, but it makes it more transparent that this is all set up, and I think I'm hoping enough people wake up because the orchestrated effort to have 4 trials, or at least 3 of them next year during campaign season, in the most important election year in U.S. history. And Dershowitz was really good on this. He's saying it's the biggest constitutional crisis since the 1850s. He had a great appearance on the War Room. The fact that they were willing to put the indictment on the website before the grand jurors proves that all 23 of them are corrupt, and their opinion doesn't really matter, that this is just preordained, and they were just going along with it on a rubber stamp of the prosecutor. And he also said, you know, it's Alice in Wonderland, first execution, then trial, and it doesn't matter whether they're good or bad convictions. And like he teaches his law classes, that if you get a conviction, any conviction is bad, and you won't let it overturn an appeal until the year after, until after the presidential election. And he said also, I've done hundreds of cases in RICO for 60 years. I've never seen a RICO case tried within 6 months of an indictment. Usually a year or 2 at least go by, or even longer. And if this was on another schedule, on a normal schedule, it wouldn't take place till well after the 2020 election.
Yeah. So, David, what you just described, brilliant, right? It's like talking about ready, fire, aim.
Yeah.
That's what they just did.
Well, fire,
ready,
aim,
fire,
ready.
Aim. Yeah. Yeah. So it's so apparent, right, that there's an air of desperation. One of the things, David, that caught my attention is somebody that was the former lieutenant governor of Georgia, Jeff Duncan, just came out, right, in the
Disgraceful human.
I don't know if it was on MSN.
Yeah, I read it. I forgot where.
I'm not sure where it was, but he came out and said
Forget it.
he was celebrating the indictment, saying that this, and he's a Republican, this is our chance to take back our party, take back the Republican Party from Trump. And This comes, Mr. Duncan. This is from a voice in the wilderness here at the America First warehouse. It's never going to happen. It's the America First movement that's taking over the Republican Party. You are the establishment Republicans are never taking back control.
And Kemp too. Kemp won't fire the DA. He has the power to fire the DA, right? Wasn't
Yes.
there a new law in Georgia?
Yes, passed a few months
So
ago.
Kemp is an arch enemy of Trump, from
Yes.
that further. And I think that stemmed from, and I might be wrong, but my theory is that when Trump criticized Georgia for opening during COVID, which I thought Kemp made a good decision, that this is payback for Trump criticizing Kemp that way.
Talk about a thin skin.
Probably.
Rhino. Jeez.
Yeah, I mean, that combined with the establishment rhinos in Georgia, Georgia's a mess.
Yeah.
And you would think it was a conservative state, but it's not.
So David, we talk about the connection between J6 and what's going on with these indictments, and as folks may know, the judge in the Georgia case with the judge in the D.C. indictment with Trump, not the Georgia one, D.C. Right, Tanya Chutkin.
Yeah.
So
she recused herself from a prior case.
from a prior case, she has been the
It's the same
judge
type of stuff.
in the
Everything's
trials.
cut out. I don't know what just happened, but they've not had the last 30 seconds.
Okay. Take a pause here.
And we no longer have the inputs.
We no longer have.
Like the camera and the audio are no longer coming through the screen.
I'm sure that's in.
Was it me?
I don't know what this is.
I don't think that's anything. But yeah, we no longer have black magic on here, which is what we use for all that.
So I see a couple of tables out.
Let's try.
See if there's a predator drone circling the building.
It was weird. It just cut out, and like there's no camera, there's no audio.
It's cool. It's the amount of FBI office.
They didn't like what you were saying.
I don't
Put
care.
something back in. I don't know what
Because can you talk in the mic for a second?
Check 1, 2.
Okay, see now the mic's back on. Good night. Give me 2 seconds.
You hear from me?
Right.
Yes. You hear from me?
Oh, well, because I just turned this off. But if you see here, if you go in there and you speak, you'll see it on that screen over
There's a USB that was on the phone that I just plugged in.
there. Yeah. If you speak in there, see if that goes on.
Yeah. Yes. Okay. Perfect. All right.
Just give me 2 seconds to redo everything.
Okay. All right. We'll pick it up, man. We'll stitch it the best we can. Sorry, David.
That isn't working.
Okay. Ready?
Tweaks.
Okay.
Audio.
Are we back?
Should be, yeah. I mean, you see
I can. Yeah.
Yeah.
that.
Can you tell us when you're ready to start recording?
Wait, why is not? Here, can you plug this into that little circle there?
This here.
No, the one that it should be on the left side. It's like right next to
The grandson?
right?
Yeah.
Oh, cute.
Oh,
Yeah. Oh, gee.
It's like a pumpkin.
that's
He's 4 months.
4 months. Young.
Yeah.
You know, they smile when they're young.
Now it's coming puffing down there.
Okay. So hold on. Plug the
They
USB.
scream when they're old.
That's correct.
Yeah, right.
Restart the computer.
Okay. How's that?
I said restart the computer. There was.
Okay.
Just get rid of them.
This.
implement the news.
There's a bunch of these things, there's a bunch of unconnected things in elections.
So I would like to be done by 3 o'clock.
Okay.
So I can write it on.
Okay.
They want to interview some of the women here. 6 people.
Would you just, if you want to call something, just now we don't have to, I'll be on video.
I unplugged the USB that was
I'll call you back.
it was unplugged and you said there was a problem.
Okay. That was probably the issue. Let's see. I'll get into the one at the bottom.
Yeah.
I got a USB unplugged over here too.
That might not have anything to do with this. Okay, cool. Now we have video again. We get the audio in here. Okay, speak.
Okay. How's that?
Check 1, 2. Check, check.
It's still not coming out here. All right, again.
Check, check. 1, 2, 1, 2, 3. Well, check. Houston, we have a problem.
So,
Do you hear it coming out?
I said, Houston, we have a problem.
Yeah, it's supposed to be coming out. Your
like this, I connect.
That might.
Check, check. 1, 2. Yeah, he
Yep.
said it might not be
Perfect.
related.
Okay.
Alright, we got it back. We got it back.
Okay, here we go.
In 3, 2, 1.
Here we are back, folks. Sorry for the technical difficulties. So, David, we were talking about the judge in D.C., the D.C. District Court judge, I believe it is,
Yeah.
Tanya Chutkan,
Yeah.
and her bias. You were mentioning she recused herself from a previous Trump case.
Yeah.
She's been the judge with a lot of the J6 prisoner trials. And just one of the exchanges I'll read here with one of the J6 trials. And she said, every time I see videotape or hear recordings of what happened that day, I'm struck anew with both the horror of what was going on that day and how close we came to not fulfilling one of the basic functions of our democracy, the peaceful transfer of power,
Whatever.
right? Yada, yada, yada. So while, and this was directed, while your attorney's correct in that your background didn't involve any criminal activity, the events of that day and the seriousness of those events cannot be understated. There was nothing less than, sorry about that, folks. There was nothing less than an attempt to violently overthrow the government.
Whatever.
Okay? And so one of the things we've heard the last few days is that even when exculpatory video evidence has been presented, some of these J6 prisoners have still been found guilty. And she is extremely biased.
Whole thing is disgraceful, and you know, it's her side that didn't allow constitutional process with her.
To play out that day.
You know, and it's her side, and it's all a lie. We know it's a lie. Insidiousness has prevailed in the United States. The effort to stop the Trump campaign for re-election for the third time is at a fever pitch right now. And the American people are the victims, and Trump always says they're not coming for me, they're coming for you. He's 77, he's worth a couple bill. I don't think he cares what happens. I think either he's convicted and they can monitor him. That would be devastating to the left at the polls if they don't steal it. And if he gets off, it's exculpatory, right? And but there probably will be convictions, and the whole thing is unfair. And other candidates have not only challenged the outcome and didn't want to certify elections, but there's been hush money payments, including $750,000 to Paula Jones. There's been a mishandling of classified documents for people who are not protected under the Presidential Records Act, which has not been challenged since 2012 with Judge Amy Berman Jackson's decision. Trump had every right to not only take whatever he wanted, he could throw it out if he wanted. But the list goes on, and while the Biden family, they're ignoring bribery, extortion, influence peddling, personal enrichment. But other than that, they're pretty good people.
So, David, that actually brings to mind I thought it was a very insightful, a little bit of a scary prediction from Newt Gingrich.
Yeah.
So, he talks about this, the weaponization of the DOJ, of the intelligence agencies, and the personal enrichment, the corruption, right, with the Clinton family and now Biden. So actually, Dan, let's go to that clip. Newt Gingrich, 80 seconds here. Listen to this, folks.
3, 2, 1.
So, David, any thoughts on that? He's predicting a generation of bitterness. I'm concerned about a generation of enslavement.
I don't think it goes far enough. And we are in a very, very dark time where you have not only cultural Marxism destroying our young people and our society, pervasive in the entertainment industry, but you have a takeover of the U.S. government by the left, and looking to silence everyone on the right. I think we're way past that. I think we're way past that. I don't see a way out, and unless 2024, China invades Taiwan, puts a blockade around the island, or if the war in Ukraine escalates, something because Zelensky will pull something out of his hat because they're getting their butts kicked 10 to 1. They're probably misappropriating our money. They'll be giving them, people in Maui only get $700 a day, but $113 billion to Ukraine.
Isn't that incredible,
Yeah.
David? $700 per household for the folks in Maui.
For the most expensive real estate in
But
North America.
let's send another $40 billion to Ukraine, and let's bail out.
Just $200 million this week.
Let's bail out the Ukrainian pensions. It's beyond.
So, I think we're always ahead of the game because people in America. I mean, I've been awake since the 13th, but especially after Trump derangement syndrome in 2016, the George Floyd riots, and COVID, the left has concentrated their power, which is really like at the beginning of all of this, outside of the Clinton corruption and the Obama hating the U.S. and the colonialists, returning the bust of Churchill to England. Meanwhile, Obama's brother in Kenya said the British were great to come into Africa because they have running water and electricity. But Obama doesn't care about that. But those three events from 2016 to 2020, I think people are awake. But is there enough of this?
Is it enough, Dave? Right.
I don't know if it's
Yeah, we're concerned about the steel.
I'm sorry to ramble on.
No, but David, actually, echoing what you just said, I want to just expose the thoughts and words of another America First patriot, and another voice in the wilderness. And this was somebody that made a comment in response to an article on, if you're still doubting the 2020 election, right, consider this. And this person wrote, the people who believe that mankind can control the temperature of the earth and that people can transform themselves, right, from a man to a woman and vice versa, are the same people who believe that Slow Joe got 81 million votes. 81 million votes my ass. More votes than any other candidate who ever ran for president.
10 million more than Obama, right?
10 plus million more than Obama. Tragically, those same people are now in control of all the levers of power in this country. We're in deep trouble and may not survive as a viable, free, and prosperous nation. I think he just this reader, he or she, just said very much what you just said.
You know, all these J6 trials, I have not sat in on any yet. I've accumulated, I think, enough information to get the picture. I'm going to go some because I have to do that. I'm in Washington a lot. But it's a show. They're all show trials. You know, the FBI guys walk in and mask down. The jury comes in. They put up the juries have masks. That's not a jury of your peers. You're not allowed to know who they are. You know, it's like, and then the FBI guys put up their masks. The attorneys on both sides, like Dershowitz says, this is the problem. You can't get adequate representation in the courts, especially Trump. They say the first thing that tyrants do is to get the lawyers to stop free speech. They're going after any lawyer, not only who represented Trump, but who speaks out on behalf of Trump. They're terrorizing the lawyers. Lawyers have told me they will not represent Donald Trump. They'd like to, but don't want to be Dershowitzed.
Right.
They don't want to be attacked and condemned and have their careers questioned because they support the Constitution. So if that's going on with the most powerful man in the world, basically Donald Trump, you know, what's going on with the J6 people? They're getting crushed. And it's very, very, very sad.
Yeah, so very good point, David. In Georgia, with Fannie Willis, who was just now gotten the indictment against Trump, and 18 defendants. And this is something to your point that they're really trying to silence anybody.
I think they're overreached.
Any of the conservative activists, America First patriots, they're trying to.
But I think they overstepped because I think all of this would have been more effective if they just left this all up to Jack Smith, who's obviously a biased guy and is available for the Supreme Court twice to prosecute people on the right. I think if they just stuck with that and made everything else go away, they could criminalize Trump. Now, he's a rapist, but he's not a rapist, but apparently he assaulted, but there's no proof. The victim doesn't even know what year it happened. Supposedly he did this in the middle of the day while he was on lunch at Burned Off Goodman, which is insipid. You know, and then, Alvin Bragg, he's he committed fraud, even though it was after the statute of limitations of any crime that possibly could have been heinous. And he turned down in the past and revived it just for political gain. And now with the DA of Georgia, who's just, words can't describe. So, did they overstep by having all these things that Trump is a criminal, a rapist, tax defrauder, an insurrectionist? You can't be all of these things, right?
The fact that they don't care about the optics, David. So, what do you think of the fact, and I'm going to call this a fact, that so many people, including the likes of the district attorney in New York City or in Fulton County, Georgia, were so brazenly willing to go after Donald Trump and do so with impunity?
I think they're stupid.
And yet you have Republican attorney generals in other parts of the country that will not go after Democrats or someone like Hunter Biden for the real crimes that they committed in those
I think in
jurisdictions.
Fulton County, I think in Georgia, I think the DA is stupid. I think the people who work there are racist and stupid, and she has an inappropriate relationship with a gang member that she's prosecuting. These people are not the brightest tools in the shed, and it's kind of like Stacey Abrams. She's an innocent, and so is Jack Smith. Obviously, has an axe to grind. Alvin Bragg doesn't prosecute 50% of the crimes in New York. Letitia James, the most corrupt attorney general in the history of New York State, if not the country. All of these people are flawed. They're flawed. This isn't like I graduated law school and I care about the law and I want to bring justice to America. This is all politically driven. But I think they messed up. They really do.
Do you don't believe, David, that it's that they are part of, that Alvin Bragg, Fannie Willis, that they're part of the conspiracy?
No, I think they're being used and exploited, and they think this is the DA in Georgia. I think this is like Judge Ito in the OJ trial. He was so enamored with the cameras and stuff like that. I mean, you're indicting 22 people. You're indicting Rudy Giuliani, the most important prosecutor in the history of the United States, the most honest prosecutor in the history of the United States. Cleaned up New York from stem to stern. Was there for 9/11, guiding New Yorkers at a terrible time. Got the mafia out of the Fulton Fish Market, got them out of the sanitation industry in New York, got them out of the building trades in a way, and allowing people to operate freely without being extorted by the mob. Now he's a criminal all of a sudden. So, on one hand, I'm not hopeful. On the other hand, I am hopeful that this is going to backfire.
David, the playbook of accusing your opponent of doing exactly what you're doing. So they're accusing Trump now of conspiracy, as Charlie Kirk pointed out. Molly Ball wrote the article that appeared in Time magazine. There was really a conspiracy, right, and a plan that was put into action to make sure that Trump did not win the election in 2020, November 2020. The charges that Trump and these co-defendants now are part of the criminal enterprise. When there is a real criminal enterprise, the Biden crime family.
Well, look at the timing,
right?
This latest indictment drops before two bombshells. They're tracing back 50 million. So that Hunter Biden might have benefited from. It's always timing.
Yes,
it's always timing. And every indictment has come out as soon as revelations were released. So I think these things were set a long time ago in action, probably a couple of years. They all met, and they're saying, this is the four things we're going to bring Trump down on: 400 years in prison, death penalty. So. But do enough people see through it?
The whole thing with insurrection, it truly is an insurrection against people. So, one of the things, David, we'll close out something that I thought this was very good. I'll just read this short excerpt from an article here from J.B. Short at American Thinker, one of my favorite writers. And let me just put my fingers on this here. So, I'll tell you what, can't find it. David, tell me what your closing thoughts are. Tonight we have the focus on the J6 political prisoners. Folks, things that we have recorded from previous days. You can go to our Rumble page, TAFMC, and you can see what we posted there. We also have live streaming going on, and David, it's Express Media, Freedom Express Media. You can check that out, YouTube and Rumble, as well as Twitch, for live streaming.
Emerson poll, Trump is up 40 over DeSantis. And Chris Christie passed Tim Scott, Mike Pence, and even Ron DeSantis in New Hampshire. So, there's a lot of libs up in New Hampshire too, but they're also Boston Pro 2A, and Trump won the primary with 86% of the vote. So it's a split. 40% independent, 31% Democrat, 30% Republican. So it's mixed. They're a little granola crunchy, Ben and Jerry's, but then they're also like...
Yeah. Chris Christie, did he give up his job as chief spokesperson and ambassador for the Golden Corral?
Oh, I thought you meant for Duck Donuts. That's right.
Chris Christie, what a POS he is.
But, you know,
He's got no shot, Christie.
but
Zero.
there's more polls. You know, on Monday, the INI tip poll, TIPP, Trump's ahead 45 points over Ron DeSantis. Ramaswamy is beating DeSantis in 2 polls, tied with him in another. And then the last week's Signal poll has Trump up 42, and Fairleigh Dickinson has Trump up 43 points.
Yeah.
I'm expecting that to go up.
So what do you think when DeSantis came out and said that theories by Trump about the 2020 election being stolen were unsubstantiated? Did he help himself
No,
or hurt
I
himself?
think he was a jerk. You know, he on one hand he says, "Oh, you know, these indictments are wrong," but you know, to come out and say there was no fraud in the 2020 election is just absurd. It's just absurd. And you know, if he wants to join the mainstream media narrative, but everything's planned. You know, is he going after the independent vote? What is he doing? I thought that was a bad move by him. You know, because I have liked him. But, yeah.
Yeah. So, so David, I didn't find it, but the gist of what I was going to read before was that, you know, that the founders gave the people 3 ways to protect themselves against the federal government. Right. So the First and Second Amendment, right? The free speech, and the media being part of that. Now the media is like the fourth estate. They're trying to censor our free speech, so they're taking that away. The Second Amendment, to be able to fight against tyranny, and they keep trying to take away our Second Amendment rights that are enshrined in the Constitution. And the third thing being the electoral process, right? And we know that there has been significant fraud and lots of concern about
Well,
that.
about fraud, I feel DeSantis contradicted himself because he's saying you shouldn't indict him in Georgia, but then he's saying there's no election fraud. Well, which is it? You know, and or he maybe he's just speaking out for free speech, but you know, Trump didn't ask for anything undue. And simple request. Find fraud, you know.
Right.
That's it.
This is all about the issue with the election fraud is all about the same thing here, right? We are trying to expose the truth here, folks. It's all about truth and justice. Truth and justice. We desperately need that to be able to remain free, and we need that in our elections. And the January 6th political prisoners that have been persecuted by the left, that are being persecuted, we need truth and justice for them as well. So folks, tune in tonight. We've got other things going on today, but tonight, 6 p.m., hosted by Joe the Box, we're putting the spotlight on the personal stories of the J6 political prisoners and their families.
We'll see you soon, everybody.
Thanks very much, folks. As always, stay strong in faith, be courageous, live free. God bless.
Do we have any numbers on our Rumble views for the last 2 days?
I don't know.
Sorry about that, David.
That was good. I enjoyed listening to that.
So I wasn't really prepared.
There's lots of good information.
Right, thank you, David. Thank you.
In terms of which videos?
I don't know. Any of the
One you were in on Monday, 39 views.
Jesus Christmas.
37, 50.
Those are probably all my first cousins.
Kidding.
What about the evening stuff?
37 and 50. And then
All right, I have to end the screen and redo again. For some reason, my Rumble's not up yet. But. Okay.